All right, so I want to do a little pre-game show here before we start at 8 p.m. We're going to be doing another live stream and talking about this Avi Loeb stuff. But for right now, I wanted to talk about this because I was going over it with a friend of mine a little while ago, and I had done a stream on this, but I looked up that stream and I can no longer find it because I did a whole thing talking about this these satellites and these hangar systems and what they were basically. We had a blimp, a series of blimp hangars during World War II. A number of these were built, including one in here locally to me in Weymouth, Mass. And I went to the site and rode my bike around a bit to explore what it looks like today. But there was a naval air station in South Weymouth, and about a couple other locations. I left descriptions and I left links and stuff in the description below, including coordinates. I went and tracked down where all these things are. You can still see the remnants of where these massive hangars were, and there were a whole bunch of them all around. But this Pegios satellite, very interesting. Very interesting. Pegios stood for Passive Geodetic Earth Orbiting Satellite. Basically, early version of GPS, and it was launched by NASA in June of 1966. This spherical mylar ball was about 100 feet, exactly 100 feet in diameter, and it consisted of 0.5 mils thick mylar plastic film coated with vapor deposited aluminum, enclosing a volume of about 524,000 square feet. And it was used for the Weltzner D satellite triangulation network, worldwide satellite triangulation network, a global cooperation organized by Helmut Schmidt between Switzerland and the U.S. between 1969 and 1973. Finished in 1974, the network connected 46 stations on all continents with an accuracy of 3 to 5 meters, approximately 20 times better than terrestrial triangulations at that time. So this was super important for early field GPS for military and other units, communications devices and stuff. Really cool stuff set up during the 1970s. Look at the size of these people compared to this thing. It was 100 feet in diameter, this dang balloon. But then it got me looking at the hangar that this thing is in. Because, my God, where is a hangar this enormous that, look at the size of this thing and look at the shape on the windows and the doors, because we'll be going to use that in the future when we try to find and locate all these hangars. So this hangar was actually, according to the history, this was built by NASA and launched out of Vandenberg, California. So I guess we'll start our geo location in Vandenberg, California. Now, Vandenberg Air Force Base is a pretty big place. It has 7 separate launch complexes. Actually, 10. Sorry, 10. Maybe even more. I found 10 so far. There's 10 separate space launch complexes. So everyone talks about NASA and SpaceX and stuff, but like Vandenberg was a huge site for space launch and stuff. But I think that the hangar that this was built in was actually located at Zone 4, SpaceX Landing Zone 4, present day. I'm not sure when this hangar was built, but this is where SpaceX operates out of, is actually out of this same kind of area, which is kind of cool. But this hangar, I think, looks the same shape. I'm not sure if this is the same hangar, but if anyone knows where exactly the hangar is that Pegios was built in. But Vandenberg is one such site with large hangars. And there were a number of these hangars that were actually built during, World War II for the, this naval air stations. Actually, in 1942, a number of these hangars were built, and the first one to burn down was in Homestead, Florida. It was actually struck by a hurricane. And if you go down to Homestead, Florida, and you find the Zoo Miami, the Zoo Miami is built pretty much on top of the old hangar site. And you can see the ribs from the skeleton still there. The towers have been taken down. But that proved to be such a costly and ineffective thing that this was the first to be removed. There's a museum there, and there's, of course, a big circle of blackened earth where they would have the hangar blimp fields where these things would land. And that's the present day parking lot for the Zoo Miami. But yeah, there were two of these things. I think there was another one right here too. Yeah, there were two of these hangars here in Homestead, Florida. Massive. Let's measure. I want to measure all of these while we're doing it. So it was from about here to here, 1,000 feet. So all these were approximately 1,000 feet in width. And let's see. I want to measure all of them though, so we're going to go through all of them. That was one in Miami, and let's cover all the ones on the East Coast first. There's another one in Houma, Louisiana. And in Houma, right here by the airfield, if you go up from the airfield in Houma, right in here is where the old hangar was. And so we can kind of get an idea. Let's measure the distance from there to there, 1,000 feet. Boom. That was another 1,000-foot hangar built in the same time period, commissioned by the U.S. Navy as part of their hangar fleet. So that's the one in Houma. Then there's another one down here in Texas. Sorry, it's Freeport? No. So let me just see here. Do this on YouTube, and I have it. Hitchcock, Texas. So it's in Hitchcock. Bam. Hitchcock, Texas. So it's in Hitchcock. And you can find it easily if you go to the airport. Yes, and right here is where it was. So you can see the two towers where the giant doors were, and these rib units where the support structure for the framing and was. So let's measure this. Measure distance. Boom. 1,078 feet. This one was a little bit bigger than 1,000 feet, almost 1,100 feet. So a little bit bigger than the other ones. Then we got Houma, we got Homestead, Florida, we got Texas. There was another one in Georgia. Sorry, it's near Garden City. I can't find this one as easily on the map, but if we go to, I just closed it like an idiot. I have all the links to this stuff in the description below, but I'm just struggling to get this. So it was in Glynco, and just type in that coordinate system. It should bring you right to it. This one's a little bit weird because all that's left is these. You don't really have the hangar structures that were there. You have the open circles, and I don't know. We can compare the size of this circle diameter, which is about 500 feet, right? No, well, oh, sorry. If we go to the outside of the circle, the complete outside, it's about 750 feet. To there, it's about 600 or so feet, but 750 feet is about the diameter of that circle. And these hangars are long gone. There's literally no trace of them. I think these burned down in after World War II. Where's the there's a link I have of the coastal history of these hangars. Yeah, this is the one. So Glynco's legendary hangars, built in 1943 and burnt down, demolished in 1971. They were 150 foot tall concrete pillars, and they completely demolished them in 1971. And there's literally nothing left of them now, not even the skeletons there. So that's a rather disappointing sight, but you can at least measure the width of that circle, which we'll see in other locations. So the next one is that this one's similar to the, if you recall, the one in this one's in Elizabeth City. And if you go to Elizabeth City, right down here on the coast, okay, right there, clear that measurement, you find this hangar, which is, there was another one right here, it looks like, which is similar to the design of the 1942, 1943 World War II commissioned ones. And that is indeed 1,075 feet, a little over 1,000 feet in length, 1,000 feet probably on the inside, but maybe that extra accounts for the doors. Then there's this hangar right here, which is another almost 1,000 feet, a little bit less than 1,000 feet. And this looks more similar to the ones at, if you recall, the Weymouth Naval Air Station. It looks very similar to the construction of those two. So I think a different contractor must have built this one and that one, because they're just built, they have a different type of construction altogether. So, and this one's still standing today, as you can see. And the other one is up the road in New Jersey. And that's in Lakehurst, New Jersey, right next to the Hindenburg crash site. So if you go to Lakehurst, New Jersey, you'll find this is the Hindenburg crash site is right here. Oops, clear that measurement. Here's the Hindenburg crash site. This is where the Hindenburg crashed while it was, landing in historic landmark. And right down the road, right here, is where these blimp hangars are, So the Hindenburg crash was the end of the era, that marked the end of the era, really. When the Hindenburg disaster happened, it said, it scared everyone in the public and the press. It was basically like, hydrogen is out. We can't, even though hydrogen is 3 times lighter than helium, we could no longer, it's too dangerous to build blimps out of. It's just, it's too hazardous. Look at this disaster that happened, and it scared everyone away from using airships, especially hydrogen gas powered ones. And from then on, only 36 people died in the incident. Really, realistically, way more people die than that every week in car crashes in America. But this was enough to scare the public away from, into outlawing, the use of hydrogen blimp technologies altogether. It wasn't, blamed on the thermite aircraft hull. It wasn't blamed on the cigarette smokers who disobeyed the law. to light up their cigarettes and smoke, well, on a blimp full of extremely flammable hydrogen gas. It was you know, I don't know, maybe it was a little bit overreaction to at the time to outlaw this altogether, but and not enough investigation. But that's another whole story and a whole nother thing. But anyways, right there in New Jersey, right next to where that event happened, is where these things were built. So the Hindenburg accident actually happened on May 6, 1937. So these hangars were built after the, years after, and they were to house the blimp fleet, but it was a hydrogen, a helium blimp fleet rather than the hydrogen blimp fleet. Even though some of these hangars did exist before and are shown housing, two Graf Zeppelins side by side. So there's a whole article. Yeah. So here's a picture. Two Graf Zeppelins could fit in one of these hangars side by side of the original construction. So here it is inside. This is the Hindenburg inside one of these hangars. I think this might have been in New Jersey. This is the one in New Jersey. So the I got to figure out when all these were built exactly, because it looks like if this is the Hindenburg inside that one in New Jersey, then then this facility had to have been built much earlier. It might have been a different facility altogether. So there's still some interesting, I've done a little bit of research into this, but it still looks like there could be a whole nother video done on this that dives deep into, exactly how many Zeppelins we had in the fleet and at the time and where they were at different, at all the different times, and the whole, evolution of blimp technology and Zeppelin technology, because it's a whole like lost chapter of history. A lot of this stuff was decommissioned, and the blimp fleet was actually ended in the 70s. The U.S. Navy just decommissioned all of its blimp fleet and said we're no longer really going to be using blimps. And blimps only recently came back with surveillance technology for war and other types of applications. They've really been a yeah. So this was the original hangar. It looks like. So this was a hangar right here. These are the two hangars right here, and there's got to be another hangar that was right here at the Hindenburg crash site. That's what it looks like. Right? Are you getting that from the picture too, guys? These are the two. Okay, that's interesting. Let's just try to map out the. Yeah, see, there's that road. It goes like this. And there was another hangar right up here at that Hindenburg crash site. It's no longer there. And there was another blimp hangar over here somewhere too. It's no longer there. Or maybe this is that hangar. Oh, this is the hangar right here. Oh God, it's all the way in the foreground. That's the one. So this is the original hangar that held the two Graf Zeppelins side by side, or the Hindenburg, which is the biggest blimp. Let's look up size comparison. Graf Zeppelin Hindenburg. I just want to see the just so people get a scale for this kind of thing, right? This is the size of this thing. So this is a Graf Zeppelin, and this was the Hindenburg blimp. So it could fit two Graf Zeppelins side by side, right? But it probably couldn't fit a whole Hindenburg in there. Of course, they constructed blimps in these hangars too. There they are, two side by side. Maybe you could fit one Graf Zeppelin next to a Hindenburg. I don't know. But in any case, oh yeah, well, there's the Hindenburg right there. In any case,
the ill-fated Hindenburg on her last flight sails over New York. These pictures, made from a Pathé News plane less than 4 hours before the tragedy, show the world's largest airship heading for Lakehurst, New Jersey. Over Newark's famous little skyway, the airship was hailed by thousands who little dreamed it was their final glimpse of the Hindenburg. Inside the silver envelope are 16 separate gas bags, each filled with hydrogen, a highly inflammable gas. From the ground, you can see the forward control cabin from which the ship is operated. The windows along the side indicate the location of the passengers' quarters, in which many were carried.
the heat off of that thing must have been incredible. I don't understand how this person was running right here. Look at them.
Rushing to the rescue, the heroes of the tragedy dashing, heedless of danger to help the injured to safety, while others, beyond help, perish in the flames.
A minute and a half it took to burn completely to the ground. Yeah, so let's talk some physics of these things. What's up, man? You there? Look at the size of this hangar. So this was the you can see the Ford the windows on this one. So this is the one.
Check microphone. Am I working now?
This has got to be the hangar where the Pegios satellite was built. Because remember those?
Check.
Look at that. See. Look at this.
Check.
Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, I can hear you, man. I can hear you.
Oh, that's really weird. I'm looking at my settings here, and normally when you go to your audio settings, it shows you the little 5 dots telling you your audio level. It's not giving me a damn indication. So hopefully my levels are good. I wanted to mention, while I was doing calibration, I was I had the opportunity to step inside and calibrate some high temperature ovens, and they'll normally run them during operation pretty much 7 days a week, all year long at about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. So stepping inside of those things is a rather interesting experience. What I ended up doing was throwing on my winter jacket, and I went in with the electronics and the probe. I just insulated them in some fiberglass mesh and foil around that, so I could see the display, just a big enough hole. But yeah, I would step inside the entire 300-degree oven, and somebody on the outside would have a stopwatch with 60 seconds on it. And if I wasn't out of there by that time, they'd basically just come in and get me. But anyways, yeah, you can handle a pretty high heat with just a winter jacket. But the amount of intense IR I found out while I was doing some carbon arc experiments will start to melt fabrics. So I have no idea how that guy was walking away. What I'm shocked about, though, is that picture that you show, and if you can pull it
I
up.
don't think he made it far. It looks like he collapsed like shortly after that in the video, man. His back was probably torched, dude. The amount of heat and radiation, even through his clothes, like
I would imagine. I have to hold my breath. I was able to take about 2 breaths, and if you couldn't hold your breath for at least 30 seconds, you got about 1 slow inhale over the course of 20 seconds, and it had to cool down 300 degrees Fahrenheit.
yeah, you'd have to hold that breath because literally the hydrogen would suck. The burning hydrogen would suck all the oxygen out of the immediate air in that environment, and you'd have to be holding your breath because if you breathed in, as soon as you breathed in, it would suck all the oxygen out of your lungs, so you collapse, kind of like nitrogen. What's it called? If you breathe pure nitrogen, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's something that happens to you. In fact, there was an industrial accident one time where someone breathed. There was a pit where like there was pure gas of another gas. I think it might have been carbon dioxide because it was heavier and it was in the pit. And one guy went down the pit, and as soon as he took a breath, it sucked all the oxygen out of his lungs, and he passed out instantly. Right. So the other dude was with him. It's like, oh God, let me go help him.
Oh no!
And he goes down the pit, and as soon as he breathes, he passes out instantly, right? So it was just one after the other of like guys like, oh my God, let me help, and until one guy got there and was like, oh God, let's, this is what's going on. It's called nitrogen asphyxiation, and we need to get, like you need to have gas on before we go in there.
You know what's hilarious is if the pit was an open pit that just happened to have a large volume area, somebody could have taken a 500-watt fan, blowing it down one side,
maybe
come up the other, and totally cleared it out. But instead, everyone's climbing down, right?
Yeah. So this happened in Delaware, and this is a safety training video that was made because of the incident that killed, about 7 people. So, yeah, something worth keeping in mind about,
Back to the Hindenburg, though,
80% nitrogen and about 20% oxygen, and if you mess up those ratios, it can be very hazardous to your health.
So first off, as we went on earlier, I wanted to give you a massive public credit for finding a huge amount of data on all of the sites that hosted dirigibles and airships. I don't think we have any idea on a mass scale just how large our airship program was in the U.S. and how many bases we had specifically to hold these super large vehicles. It's bonkers how many air bases you were able to find.
Yeah, those are all the ones that I found. Of course, there's 2 on the West Coast that I didn't mention. This is Tustin Blimp hangars. There's 2 of them that are actually still there. You can go on. I mean, check this out, dude. Like, let's just go street view. Like,
yeah, when you see how big these facilities are, it's truly magnificent.
They're massive, 1,000 foot long. Just massive structures. How wide were they? So this is the one in now we're back in New Jersey. I don't know how we got there. But in any case,
no kidding, Simon. If you were to throw a concert inside of one of those things.
There's another one in Tillamook, Oregon, which is now an aerospace museum. So right here in Tillamook, this air museum right here. Check this out. there's a whole bunch of stuff including. I think there's a VZ9 Air Avro car here because it's so close to Canada.
Get a little closer to your mic, Jeremy.
So I think there's a VZ9 Avro car here. One of the few air museums that have one of these because it was a Canadian developed craft that worked on the Quanda effect, a little Canadian flying saucer. And there's one of them at this that place in I think this air museum in Tillamook, Oregon.
People get the story of that craft wrong. They think that it was a failed military project, but really it was just a pet project from somebody that had military associations, and he just wanted to prove the concept that with a single turbine device you could stabilize with air vanes and propel yourself along with ground effect. That was really the only purpose of it. The entire geometry was all for Quanda, so you could get that upwards dynamic lift. But the trouble is he really ran it backwards. He was trying to pressurize the underside environment instead of trying to push air over the surface. And the truth is he shouldn't have had any kind of hole through the center like that.
So
push the air in the wrong direction. This machine, on the other hand, definitely had it where it's at. It's flying beautifully stable.
So someone posted this on Twitter and it got like almost 1,000 likes from some weird UFO channel, right? And Twitter's been so screwed up, and I've noticed today I've actually been testing the algorithm since like Elon took over, and I've noticed I've gotten actually an increase in subscribers, followers for the first time in I don't even know how long. I've noticed because I have other people who have Twitter like go and look up my account and try to find, search for alien technology or alien science, and they couldn't even find my profile to follow on Twitter.
Yeah, I noticed that. It seemed to be about like 4 months ago. 4 months ago, I used to be able to find you easily by typing in your exact name, which is kind of like the last resort when you're blacklisted, is typing in your exact name, other than going to the URL, which is really the final straw. But
so, yeah,
you don't show up in search anymore correctly.
It's crazy. It's like the real stuff gets hidden, but this Sophia Dahl feller, she got 650 likes for posting this. It's literally the WASP 2 or the and I have a comment on here where I go into all of it too. It's a personal flying platform called the WASP 2, and it was based on the power, like Bernard commented on this too. So I have all this stuff. It was actually a power plant by and all my comments are hidden. Like it hides all this stuff on Twitter. So now I go through it and I go back and I can't find this stuff. But all the all the bullshit is like popularized, but all the real information's like hidden. There was a bunch of other comments of other people posting about it too. So yeah, there's a couple other ones. It's the Williams X-Jet. So this is what it was. It was this Williams X-Jet, and it was based on just a turbofan motor.
I hate that it's mechanical and that it runs off fossil fuel, but everything about its function and the way that it moves and its mobility, I want one. I don't know how anybody could watch that video of just
it could hover still for
over trees and not want one. How do you not want that, man?
But the thing is, it was loud. It was loud as hell, and it was shaky as hell. It was like it literally shook your whole body. It felt like like you ever like work with power, like a jackhammer.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
it was like
you were working on a jackhammer, literally flying this thing, and it could basically hover for 45 minutes in place, or like 30 minutes if you were like really pushing it to the max. 30 to 45 minutes of endurance time.
Yeah, but keep in mind what it was made of. I mean, the damn thing was made of like thin steel plating, and it had all kinds of aluminum structural materials. Imagine if you made it with modern day materials like carbon fiber and advanced alloys. I mean, you could basically reduce the weight of the craft, and you could get the thrust to weight ratio up very large. But if we skip past all that and we talk about torsion field lift, then we're in a totally different regime. The only trouble is there's no way you could have the thing that close to your body without shielding.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, so it's the same thing. It's just it was a cool craft, but hey, it turned out it wasn't super practical. Helicopters were better for local recon missions. They had a longer range and better endurance, and also a lot more safety factors and reliability, and also much quieter than these things. Apparently, these things were loud as hell. So yeah, that's just one example. But I've noticed I have noticed a difference in Twitter. Hopefully, like the Elon Musk taking over really changes things, and I really hope he exposes that algorithm and shows people, what was behind the censorship and stuff in that algorithm, because there was a lot of stuff was getting censored. And I just tested the algorithm by trying to post all the craziest conspiracy stuff today, and look, it can barely fit the tail section in this freaking hangar with this craft.
Just looking at that, can you imagine trying to be the pilot?
I know. I
get that it was dragged in by ropes, and there was probably 30 guys on the sides of that thing just trying to keep it from touching the sides, but still, they didn't exactly give a whole lot of wiggle room in the hangar. Although the nice side is you could practically climb up the frickin' walls and maintenance the thing because it was so close. What? A dirigible landing on an aircraft carrier? Now that's cool. Actually, that looks like a cargo ship, not an aircraft carrier. But yeah, still awesome. That's innocent. Hey, would you pull up the picture of the dirigibles next to the hangar that they're if they're flying in? You can see just how large they are compared to the whole hangar, and get an idea of the difficulty parking that thing inside.
Well, the thing is, it would land on that. Here's the link. Here, look at, there's another one. Other ones in Sunnyvale, California. We didn't even find. Look at, here's more.
Nice map.
So there's ones in Sunnyvale, California, called Moffet Field. Yeah, Moffet Field. I forgot about Moffet Field. So we'll have to look up Moffet Field too. What did I want to look up? I wanted to look up. But anyways,
well, I don't want to throw you too off course with finding all the locations, but I do want to mention this, something called charge pumping. Charge pumping is when you can take charges from the ground, negative charges, and as we well know, the Earth is a circuit. The surface of the planet is extraordinarily negatively charged. There are so many excess electrons, it's just insane. But they're fairly equidistributed, except for around thunderstorms, where you get these strong electric fields that drag the charge along underneath the storms, just a little bit behind. Anyways, you have so much ground charge available to you that if you were to just pull some of it from the local ground and push it up into a craft, the repulsion there would be rather incredible. And the good news is, coming down continuously from the upper ionosphere are 400,000 amps of current for ions that have been produced by solar radiation hitting the ionosphere and producing positive ions. And some of these are even in the upper atmosphere heavy ions, meaning they're isotopically enhanced ions, so they drift down at a lot higher velocity and they'll pull up on other charges with a lot more force because, well, they're heavier, they're isotopes. So think about this. We have an airship, neutrally buoyant, and let's say it has enough weight to lift a payload of, 1,000 pounds. If you just gave that thing a potential of, say, 10,000 volts on its surface, the amount of lift force that you would gain would be almost equivalent to the buoyancy that you get from the lighter than air gas that it's filled with. So you could almost double or even triple its lift force. And then we get to the case of the Hindenburg and what happened there. So the frame was not electrically isolated. It didn't ground out all its connections, and there were little gaps and smaller spark points between various structural elements of the craft. When they did finally fly through the atmosphere, because they had gone a pretty decent distance, and there was a high atmospheric condition day where there were lots of ions in the air, when they finally did ground out, a large discharge occurred and broke through the dielectric barrier between the binding structural elements of the framework. All that was left over at the end, of course, was the framework that ultimately took the thing down. But they didn't electrically bond the thing, considering its circuitry, the electrical potential that had to be nulled out because there was a lot of charge there. So the Hindenburg ultimately was destroyed because of atmospheric charge. That's the wonky part. It just flew through the air, and downwards traveling ions from the ionosphere charged the thing up to a very high positive potential. And when it contacted the tower, the moist rope was more than enough to short out the circuit and cause arcing at multiple points along the structure. And so you had a simultaneous ignition that broke through the dielectric, punctured the hydrogen vessels, and it was all over.
St. Elmo's fire. That's what it says. Possibly static electricity or St. Elmo's fire moments before the fire on top and in the back of the ship near the point where the flames first appeared.
Yeah, going back to Tartaria, if you just fly a balloon up in the atmosphere, a metallic balloon, like, I don't know, the Batman balloon that was the famous spotted UFO, if you tie a wire to that thing and bring it back to ground, once it's about 1,000 feet up, you can continuously draw arcs off of it. You can light a 4-foot fluorescent bulb to about 30% of its full brilliance, and there's a lot of power there from just a mylar metallized balloon floating about 1,000 feet up. It's kind of nuts. So now take the surface area of the whole entire dirigible and consider just how many ions it's collecting and how much charge it could build. It's a really wild number. Luckily, you've covered Mirabeau, and Mirabeau shot negative ions, or he shot electrons, an electron beam out in front of his craft to get rid of the extra charge so that it would literally pull the entire thing into the space in front of it.
So would dropping this ballast too, like almost create electrical charge in the thing? Because they drop so much ballast, it's almost like a rain cloud acquiring charge through all the dropping rain.
It absolutely would have. The funny thing is, they could have probably neutralized out all of that electrostatic charge if only they had a bunch of sharp brushes, like brush wires, on the bottom side facing towards the Earth, so that they could have easily leaked away the ionic charge continuously instead of having to build it up to a high potential.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interesting factors. If you were to like really, I don't know, who's this? It would have to be a lot of experiments.
It was a little before the time.
Yeah, because this was like 1937. I mean, Biefeld-Brown effect was maybe discovered 10 years earlier and was very not well known.
Yeah, but it wasn't until the 1950s and 60s that Brown finally got serious about it and got a lab with Bonson and Hill. And that's when they really made their progress, when they realized the incredible strength of electrostatic lift forces, especially when you torque them in an axial direction, because you get amplification of the same force. That's where you get your electrogravity. If you have an electrostatic attraction between two charged objects, and then you rotate them, the electrostatic attraction force between them goes up. It's one of those not talked about things that's sort of a blacklisted topic. But if you just simply move all the charges that are in a system, even if you don't add or remove any more charges, just by having them physically move through three-dimensional space, their electric field grows from the outside frame of reference, so they have more force against each other. Now, if you just rotate one of the two charged objects, only it experiences an increase in its emitted force, but it does not experience an increase in its received force. And that's where they broke the symmetry. The symmetry breaking phenomena is really critical with all of this.
Yeah, interesting. Because there's always like this balance of the forces that holds everything in place. And when you break the symmetry, you can just create this. You can create massive forces around an object.
We've got lots of mathematics for vector fields and talking about linear forces. But when we talk about taking a linear force that already has a linear direction along a vector field, and then we talk about taking a vector field and turning those arrows by some degree so they end up going in an axial direction where they twist around, the force is amplified.
I mean, just think about this in the late 50s. They're doing this type of research, and that they're already probably like just deciding whether it can be applied to, weather balloons or orbits or satellites or space, other space technology for propulsion, to maneuver things around in the atmosphere or in space.
Yeah, and it's such a simple experiment too. For example, what I did was I was in a well-grounded building with a nice tall 10.5-foot ceiling. I took a grocery bag, plastic 2-handle bag, and stuck it on the end of a high-voltage ionizer tip that was negatively charged. Now, the ground is already negative, and even though we're indoors inside of a building, there's still a lot of positive ions dropping onto the top, so it leaves the roof somewhat positively charged. Now, once the bag was filled with ions, first thing that I want to note is it inflated. So there was no actual pressure inside the bag, and it was totally open. It was just like, a cup shape. The whole entire bottom was open, but the entire thing was inflated because it was filled with negative ions. Now, they repelled from the ground, and they pulled up towards the ceiling with a significant amount of force. And out of curiosity, once the bag flew up and stuck to the ceiling, I wanted to see how much it could hang. And I was shocked to find that I could hang about 600 grams from the bag stuck to the ceiling because of the ionic attraction to the positive charge coming down from the upper atmosphere that couldn't get through the plastic. It was a lot of force. Now, if I didn't have a ceiling there, but I just injected positive ions above the thing, I could get the same exact kind of effect.
This
Which,
was
by
the
the way, I
vacuum
did, and
chamber
it worked.
experiments.
Worked beautifully. These videos right now that you're showing dispel the most common misinterpretation of brown, that it doesn't work in a vacuum. Actor Serrano already demonstrated that, and the system actually works better in the vacuum when you don't have the leakage currents, because all you get is electron emission. Just remember, in a vacuum, you can still emit electrons, and electrons can still accelerate. And if electrons accelerate, once they get going pretty freaking quick, their electric charge is different than their stationary electric charge. So when they're in motion, they have a lot more electrostatic potential than they do when they're at rest.
This is cool part of the video too, because it shows that they tried the tests in water, which was like, this is like the birth of magnetohydrodynamics or electrohydrodynamics.
Well, yeah, this same exact group of scientists created many of the forefront technologies for EHD and MHD technology.
Heck yeah. Yeah, this is key stuff. Key part of the history. Those blimp hangars are cool too. I just was like, so I don't think that I think that was in New Jersey that this was built, that Pegios satellite. Because look at this, man. Look at this.
Is that not the most amazing thing we've almost ever seen? And look at how it's made too. In this picture, if you really zoom in, you can see the sheer amount of effort they put into making this thing with individual strips, hundreds of them, bonded together seamlessly, edge to edge at that exact curvature.
Yeah. A lot of effort went into this.
It's just nuts. And it's gorgeous.
You see these lines up and down, where the seams meet, but these are literally like, if it's 100 feet. Yeah, I don't even know how they did this, dude. I would love.
They're like 1 foot wide strips, and then they're just tapered so that they can.
One of these dudes. See this guy right here? This guy right here. Look at this guy with the camera and the tripod, dude. That dude's got an archive of all the photographs of how this thing was built. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no kidding, man. Hey, what's the it's just too bad the can you move right? What's the truck say? Pure what on the side?
Pure carbonic.
Yeah, what is pure carbonic? I'm kind of curious now. What is that? Didn't notice that before. Anyone in the audience know what that is?
Pure Carbonic Incorporated, Delaware, Florida. Okay, so let's see this. There are 8 companies that go by the name Pure Carbonic Incorporated. These companies are located in New York, St. Louis, Wilmington, Delaware. So right around that area, Pure Carbonic Incorporated.
Interesting. So they're just a company name. It could have been anything inside that tanker truck then.
Dude.
But it did look like, based on the idea that it looked like a vessel tanker, but it also had a lot of extra build around the outside. It seemed to be a refrigerated vessel, perhaps, or maybe a reinforced vessel. So I wonder what they had in there.
So there was a Zenith Corporation in Florida where the CIA operated out of for years in Fort Lauderdale. And it was like this big building. It was called Zenith Corp, and no one knew what they made there or anything, but that was like where the CIA operated out of. There was another one that they operated. It was called like the something Steamship Corporation. There's a whole bunch of funny CIA fronts, and CIA front companies. If you look up all the history of the organizations that they've used to, the Steamship Corporation, Gibraltar Steamship Corporation,
Yeah, by the way, it just now notified me that we're live 50 minutes in. Isn't that nice?
Sweet. Yeah,
Oh,
permanent.
you gotta love those YouTube notifications. They're so quick to let you know.
Yeah. Well, it's sending it out as soon as I mention that keyword. It's like, all right.
Yeah, I was able to find it in the search pretty quickly, but notifications 50 minutes late. I guess maybe that's on my end more than anything else.
Well,
But
we're
pretty
gonna stop this anyway, because we're gonna send everyone here. We're just gathering up the crowd for tonight, because the real show is gonna be when we start talking about this Avi Loeb business on the next stream.
Hell yeah! Wait until we get into non-equilibrium phase transitions. All the good stuff.
Oh, well, it's gonna get into some alien technology. I mean, this is the old stuff. It's worth going over and mentioning some history, giving some tribute to our ancestors. I don't know if I should spill the beans on it live. Maybe I should. I'm just going to spill it live on air.
Give a teaser, man.
Right now.
Give a teaser at least.
Just a little teaser. I don't know if I should say this, man. Until I don't want to count my chickens until it happens. I don't know, but so John Lear passed away. In case you guys didn't know, right? John Lear was like the godfather of conspiracy. Crazy sumbitch old man who believed everything and anything, and every lie that was ever forwarded by anyone, John Lear would repeat and pass on and believe fully. He was just a really gullible dupe, and famous for it. Because he was just one of the originators and talked about all the Bob Lazar stuff before Bob Lazar knew Bob Lazar, before Bob Lazar was hired out at Area 51. And
well, we're going to find out this year, Jeremy, and I hate to say, of all the people that I have to tell this to you, but we're going to find out this year that a lot of the stuff, the really weird stuff about antimatter reactions and using strange elements in bombardment, we're going to find out this year that the shit works.
Yeah, some of it was not so kooky and crazy after all. Some of it was like right on. And
that doesn't mean I at all support any of the stuff that he said. I'm not saying that I support him. I'm just saying that some of the stuff that he brought out from one fashion or another, whether he pulled it from an accurate scientific article that had the meat and potatoes, or it was handed to him, or he actually seen it, whatever the case was, he either intentionally or accidentally did spot off some pretty critical information, and you actually can get genuine antimatter production. In fact, I'm going to have to talk to you before you go on with this next one, because there's one thing I definitely want you to show live.
Dan, get on here.
It's freaking incredible, and it's a fairly new piece of info. And it's about thunderstorms and antimatter, so we'll talk. Before you go back on the next stream, we've got to cover that.
Well, I tell you what, John Lear is about as close to the origins of Bob Lazar as you can get in the whole Bob Lazar story. And a friend of John's and a friend of Bob's is also a friend of someone we've been talking to. So I don't want to mention any names or get into it, but apparently they have a 1/4 of John Lear's ashes have been given to Bob Lazar to be blown up in a big rocket that they're going to blast off at Desert Blast this year.
Isn't that a little bit offensive to the guy's heritage to put him up in a rocket?
That's what he wanted.
He wanted a rocket?
He wanted to be sent up in a rocket and blown all over the place, blown all over the desert.
Oh man, I just don't understand. How does the psychology of a guy who pursued his life with like UFO and UAP research want to go up in a rocket of all things?
Oh, just 1/4 of them, not all of it.
Maybe that's like his testament to the past and where we came from.
So,
the rest of them has got to go up in an anti-G craft. I mean, come on.
I know, it's got to just go in space somewhere, go to the moon or something, and part of it to the sun, you know, to his people on the sun, because he thought people lived on the sun too. That was one of his crazy conspiracies. But yeah, apparently their Desert Blast is this big festival, and I don't know. I heard that if it's not going down there, it's going down somewhere. The Desert Blast Festival. It's kind of like an invite only thing, and
For me, it's 6:40. What time was Michael available?
Explodaholics. I don't know. This is what I heard, but apparently me and Dan are invited to go, and this would be maybe an opportunity where we can meet Bob Lazar.
That's going to be a unique opportunity to get a personal view on what his character traits are and his nonverbal behaviors. That's what you're really going to be able to read and find out what he's about.
I know, because there's so much crap about him that was written, but like the thing is that Tom Mahood, the guy who wrote a lot of this stuff, a lot of this research and stuff, man, you can't get these guys to do interviews. They won't like do interviews. So Tom Mahood refused to do an interview. He said not worth his time.
And Bob has put a price tag on his interviews.
And Bob, of course, you know, like he's, you know, I can't afford that, but and maybe I'm not interested really in interviewing as much as I am as really like, I don't know, that'd be freaking awesome, huh? Doing a live stream of the rocket launch, of just sending John Lear up in the rocket and me hanging out with Bob Lazar in the desert at Desert Blast, man. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it would be pretty cool.
I'm gonna try to pursue that, and you know what, like, if that's what it takes, dude, that would be pretty freaking cool.
When is this happening?
I don't know, but I'll keep people posted. In any case, I'm gonna shut this stream down, and let's get it started up on the other stream in about 10 minutes from now. We'll see you on the next stream, so stay tuned. We're gonna be coming right back and talking about this new debrief article with Abby Loeb, published this April 20th, 2022, about scooping interstellar fragments from the ocean floor. Apparently some pieces of that Oumuamua interstellar object that he tracked and followed across our solar system dropped some debris and dropped some stuff that landed in our ocean, and they want to send teams to go look for it. If it's still there, maybe it's already running around our Earth exploring some alien probes that they dropped in the ocean. I don't know, man. It's some wild stuff, but we're going to talk about U.S. Navy technology for tracking objects that fall into the ocean and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, jump in the StreamYard link if you guys want to join behind the scenes, and maybe we'll give you a link over to the next stream.
Yeah, for the rest of you guys, you don't want to join right now, it's going to be pretty good coming up. So even though you probably won't get notifications on time, just check your notifications in 10 to 15 minutes if you haven't seen it already, or just search for Jeremy's channel to check it out, because YouTube is really screwing us here. So let's get everybody on here and talk the details of the technology and how we can actually get up in the air.
Heck yeah.
All right, man. Looks like we've got people coming in, so let's kill it, and we'll get back in 10, 15 minutes.
See you in about 10 minutes on the other video. Just stay tuned on Alien Scientists on YouTube. Thanks, guys.